Hi Uplanders, I can't stress enough how important it is to do your own research when looking to purchase a property in the Upland metaverse. There are several tools out there that help organize data so that you can better understand the different markets and prices in the different cities. And there's also the weekly Upland Property Experts podcast hosted by Too Stupid to Win and Thank Me Later, and every week they go over market prices as well. It's a great way to understand the overview of the different property markets across the metaverse, but this week something jumped out at me and I've got to share this with you. Now, if you watch a lot of my videos, I'm sure you're aware that I'm not a big fan of using the average as a statistic, whether it be average sale prices or pretty much average anything. I prefer using the median. In watching the Upland Property Expert podcast this past week, they presented some numbers about the USD floor prices in some of the cities, as well as average USD sales in that month. They also had a few words to say about the median sales prices. In looking at these two slides, I was able to see a completely different picture from what Too Stupid to Win and Thank Me Later are presenting here. Now, I want to preface this by saying that when you take a look at data, you can choose any type of data that you want and paint it in a specific picture. If you take the same information but present it using different statistics or in a different graphical way, you are able to draw different conclusions. To wrap up the market listings aspect of their podcast, this is what they had to say about some of the median sale prices in US dollars for the past month.
Now, the interesting thing is, if you want to look at the median sales price in San Francisco, it was $8. Median sale price in Manhattan was $39.90. And in London, you were looking at a median sale price of $28.74.
So that's it. That's all they had to say about the median prices, and that's what I've been waiting for the entire podcast, just for that number. Now, before I get into my analysis of these numbers, I just want to say that I did not do any fact checking beyond what the numbers you see here, so I'm taking these at face value. So Too Stupid to Win had just mentioned that the median sales price in US dollars in San Francisco was $8. And here in this slide, we can see that the floor price, meaning the cheapest price in US dollars in San Francisco, was also $8. So what does this mean? The median price is the middle sales price. So of these 441 properties that were sold for US dollars in this past month, half of them were sold for $8 or less. And since we know that the cheapest property that was sold was $8, we can say that half of these properties, or 220 of them, also sold for exactly $8. When looking at this slide, they talked about the average sale prices, and if you calculate this number for San Francisco, the average sale price was $18. But we know that half of these properties sold for $8. So if we subtract all those sales and calculate our new average, we are able to calculate that the average of the 50% of the most expensive properties sold has a new average of $29. To me, this says two different things. Number one, there are plenty of properties that are not special, and that's why they are being sold for the cheapest amount possible. There is a lot of competition for selling cheap properties. The second thing that it says is that there are some properties that are being sold for a lot of money. If 50% of the properties are being sold for $8, chances are there are a lot more that are also being sold at $8 or even just a little bit more. So in order for that new average to be so high, even the initial average of $18, this means that there are some properties that are extremely valuable in Upland and people are willing to buy them. Now moving on to Manhattan, we see a very similar story. The median sales price was $29.30, and we have the floor price of $28. So half of these 191 properties are being sold at the very minimum price in Manhattan. It's people competing for selling their properties for the lowest price possible. Having said that, those most expensive 95 properties that were sold at an average of $255 per property. So here you have two groups of people. You have one group which is trying to get their money out at any cost, and they are fighting to bring the floor price down. And then you have people who have priced their properties quite high, but they are items that are sought after, and people will be willing to buy them. In London, we have a medium sales price of $28.70 compared to the floor price, which is $12.90. And this brings up another issue that I have with a lot of the data, and specifically looking at floor prices. Again, I have historically said that the floor price is not something that should be given a lot of weight to when analyzing data. So I can't perform the exact same calculation that I did for San Francisco and Manhattan, because here there is a large gap between the floor price and the median sale price. Now in this instance, when we're looking at the floor price, we're always looking at the cheapest property that is sold, which is just one data point. And when we're talking about people who are trying to get their money out of the game and sell property for US dollars at any cost, that might mean that they're willing to sell their property at a great loss compared to the existing floor price. So this would essentially drive the floor price down again. But maybe if that floor price was around $20 instead of $12, then we would have a completely different picture right here. And this is where the problem comes in. It's impossible to tell if there's one property being sold at $12.90 and then the rest of them at $20, or if you have a lot of properties that are also being sold at $13 or $14 and it gradually increases. So more often than not, when you're looking at statistics and you have the minimum price of something, it's usually a statistical outlier, which means that it should be completely ignored. If this is the case here, then this property being sold at $12.90 should not be considered representative of the prices within the City of London. So in order to ignore the statistical outliers, you could actually go ahead and mathematically calculate which of the properties are actually statistical outliers. Or an easier way to do that is to take 0.5 or 1% of the cheapest listings and just discard them. And that will make sure that you start looking at data that is more representative of all of the sales prices in the city. The same thing goes with the maximum prices. A lot of people are just putting prices that are completely irrelevant and nobody will ever buy those properties. And you just have to ignore those, again, by removing the top 0.5 or 1% of these sales prices. So too stupid to win and thank me later. If you guys are watching, please start talking a little bit more about the median sales price. I think it gives a more interesting and stable picture as to what actually is going on in Upland.